We've got another interesting story for you today, so it's time to settle in. The house his father gave us for the wedding was taken away from me by my husband. I received the house a month later. I, 27 female, have been married to James, 28 male, for a very brief period of 6 months. Yes, I know it was a short stint, but I'm glad it is about to perish because it was horrendous. I met James at Stanford University and we fell for each other's charm. We dated for a year before we decided to get married. Our marriage plan came as a surprise for everyone because we were too young. My parents asked me to reconsider my hasty decision, and so did James's parents. However, we both were too passionate about being married and ignored everyone's advice. After the university, James joined his father's tech startup and I joined a marketing firm in Seattle, Washington that paid me a decent salary. So we didn't see any problem getting married. My father-in-law, 60 male, is a tech entrepreneur. He has accumulated a handful of properties for his children in the city. He has 3 sons and the youngest one is James. He gave each of his sons a house as a wedding present. So when we got married, as a tradition, my father-in-law gifted us a house at our wedding. However, that gifted house was still under construction because my father-in-law didn't anticipate that his youngest son, James, would get married so soon. Hence, the construction of that house was on his low priority list. After college, we got married shortly after. James grumbled because he didn't receive the ready-to-move-in house like his older brothers, Michael and David, while I thanked my father-in-law for this kind gift. The fact that he had to wait 6 months to take ownership of the house infuriated him. I was shocked at James's childishness and asked him to act maturely, but his mother, Susan, 58 female, intervened, saying he was the youngest and the most pampered one. My father-in-law appreciated my gratitude and said he wished James was half as grateful as I was. Although he said that humorously, it was a fact that James was a brat as well as a mama's boy. However, I didn't realize this back then. Prior to our wedding, James used to live in my apartment. Although he contributed to the rent and other bills, the apartment belonged to me. Since the possession of James's house was still 6 months away, we continued to live in our apartment after the marriage. During those 6 months, I and my father-in-law fostered a great relationship. He treated me like his own daughter. He often remarked that he wished to have a daughter like me. I was moved by his kindness. Sadly, I couldn't foster a similar bond with my mother-in-law, Susan. She was dead cold to me, and her response to my conversation would mostly be an ignorant, plastered smile or a nod. She didn't trouble me, though, so it was fine. It is almost safe to say that she was a stranger to me. She was so engrossed in pampering James that she forgot the existence of others, including my father-in-law and her 2 elder sons. 6 months went by in a blink of an eye, and finally it was time for us to move into our new house. James and I both were excited about it. My father-in-law organized a grand housewarming party at our new house as a gesture to compensate for the delay. The housewarming party was an unforgettable celebration. Our friends and family gathered, toasting our new beginnings and creating cherished memories. I felt so blessed to be a part of that family. We shifted to the house with our belongings the day after the party. That very day, James had to leave for his week-long work trip. So it was ultimately I who had to take charge of setting up the house. It took a week for me to wind up all the tasks. As the week passed, I patiently waited for James to return from his trip so we could finally start living together in our new house. When James returned, I was expecting him to be surprised and thankful to me for setting up the grandeur, but things turned out to be the opposite. I found a completely different James on that day. He acted strange. When I asked him about the home interiors I had designed, he looked around and mysteriously said that his mother would like it. I was still wrapping my head around when the doorbell rang. It was Susan. She walked past me, hugged him, and remarked under her breath, "She's still here." I didn't know what that was supposed to mean. Susan's behavior towards me was exactly the same as always. She would just walk over to me, interrupt while I would speak, and wouldn't bother to even exchange greetings with me. I felt like I didn't exist for her and that she couldn't see or hear me. Hence, her attitude was my second concern. The first concern was to find out why she said, "She's still here." Was I not supposed to be there any longer? James responded that he had just arrived at the house and did not get time to convey the message to me. He said he was glad that Susan was there so they could do it together. Susan said that she didn't have the energy to deal with me. Her exact words were, "James, darling, I can't sit here and explain to this nincompoop. He wanted this house. I helped you get it. Now it's your headache how you want to deal with it." I was feeling giddy by their conversation. Both this mother-son duo sounded shady to me. Usually, I keep my distance from Susan, but listening to the conversation, I just couldn't help but ask him about it. James fetched his bag to pull out some papers and handed them to me. I saw it was a divorce paper. I nearly passed out. This was the last thing I thought would occur that night. I couldn't speak. I questioned him whether that was meant to be a joke after giving him a quick glance. James retorted, "I fell for their trap and the joke was on me." His father wouldn't have given him the house without a woman, despite his claim that he only wanted the house. So he and Susan made this plan of putting up a wedding. He said he would have married a rock or a tree for that matter. I fought back and accused him of treason and using me for his mean purpose. James turned into a monstrous self and called me a gold digger. He said I shouldn't act innocent because I, too, was fascinated by his riches and the house. To be honest, I got to know about the house only at my wedding altar. Besides, I had never taken a penny from James during the course of dating. Susan lounged on the sofa, unaffected by her conversation, smirking and scrolling through her phone as if we were non-existent. But when I started cursing James, she pounced on me. She threatened to smack my head if I said a word to her spoiled brat. To be honest, I was terrified by her threats. She had cunning and criminal eyes, and her wicked brain was quite capable of any crime. It was already dark outside, and the house is located at a distant corner of the street. There were not enough houses nearby, and it was rare to spot anyone near the house after sunset. I wasn't feeling comfortable fighting back with these monsters, so I played down. I prioritized my safety over my anger. I hastily packed up as much as I could and left the house. As I walked out of the house, I felt like escaping my grave. I was sweating and shivering with anxiety, disbelief, and uncertainty. I lodged into a hotel at the heart of Seattle to ensure my safety. After recovering from my state of shock and trauma, I was raging with anger to avenge the humiliation and betrayal. I didn't go to my parents' house because I didn't want them to be disturbed by this news. Additionally, they would have dissuaded me from taking any action against these two beasts, but I was not a puppet who would let those beasts get away so easily. I felt helpless in that situation at first. I considered calling up my father-in-law, but I refrained. I had no evidence of their misbehavior, and without that, he would have taken his family's side. It wasn't difficult for Susan or James to brainwash and fool him, so I struck off that idea. It's been a couple of days since I moved out of that house. I have not lodged a police complaint yet or spoken to anyone about it. Today morning, while searching for something in my purse, I found a spare key to the house and an idea struck me. Yes, to go back to the house and collect some evidence against the mother and son. I'm thinking of planting some cameras and mics so that I can record their evil conversation and present it in court. As of now, I had no evidence of their threats and wrongdoings, and without that, it would be difficult to prove my case. But I'm terrified to step inside that house. I don't know what to do. Does anyone have any better idea of pulling this off? I'm so sorry. I'm sorry he manipulated you and your relationship like that in order to get the house. Susan sounds like the mother from hell. She has some strange, messed up relationship with James. I've heard of parents willing to do whatever it takes for the kids, but this is a whole other level. Your father-in-law doesn't deserve to be duped like this either. He's only trying to help his sons, and they're completely taking advantage of the fact that the dad has the ability to do so. Why not just go and speak to your father-in-law? But maybe go into the house and get your stuff out of there first, because technically I think the house is James's and he can get you for trespassing. Maybe your father-in-law can help. Hello all. Thanks for all the wonderful advice. So, as I said, I bought some hidden cameras and mics to plant inside the house to gather evidence against my husband and mother-in-law. But while doing so, I hit on a jackpot. Although I was terrified, somehow I mustered the courage to trespass on the house. But before that, I ensured to check if the house was empty. I used the hotel's landline to dial James's office, pretending to be a saleswoman. His secretary answered the call and informed me that James was busy in the meeting room with his clients. I repeated the same to check for Susan. I called up on their landline, and when Susan responded, I hung up. By this, it was confirmed that they were both not present in that new house. Then I knew that the house was empty. I rushed to the house and sneaked in using the duplicate keys. I placed several small mics and cameras in different corners of the house, which would capture all the conversations of the house. While doing this business, I stumbled upon Susan's bag, which she was carrying on the other day. I scavenged through the bag to find some shocking documents. Guaranteed the papers of all the properties owned by William, including his will. I was horrified to see those papers. I went to that house to plant my mics to gather shreds of evidence to prove my case in court, but I stumbled on a jackpot. I scanned and saved all the soft copies of the documents to read it later. I went back to my hotel room and read all the papers carefully. There was an original will signed by William, where he had equally divided all his wealth between his 3 sons. James and Susan had forged that and made a duplicate will where they named James to be the only heir. Could you believe that they were hatching such a heinous plan to sideline their own family members? The duplicate papers were unsigned, which meant that they were planning to trick William into signing the duplicate will. I had to prove to expose these monsters, so I called William and asked him to meet me at a cafe. I told him it should be a discreet meeting, and I had something very important to reveal. He was a wise man. After finishing his office, he came alone to avoid any suspicions. I narrated the horror to William, and he was in tears to hear about my plight. He said that Susan had told him that I insisted James transfer the house in my name, and when he refused, I asked him for a divorce and left the house. William suspected all these to be lies, hence he asked him about it. When James confirmed that he was no longer willing to live with me, William didn't call me or interfere further. He held my hands and apologized to me for his wife and son's behavior. I then told him that I had something else to show him. I pulled out the pictures of all the documents I had collected that day and showed them to him. He was frozen to death. He started sobbing. He was shocked to find his own son and his wife had been making plans to destroy him and his 2 other sons. I also informed William about the mics which I had planted inside the house. For some time, I got a notification from the app that the mic was recording something. We quickly plugged in the earphones to listen. Although the camera could not capture their clear image because of the angle issue, James and Susan were heard clearly talking about the papers. James was complaining that in the new will, Michael's, his eldest brother, and David's, his second brother, houses were not added. Susan was heard giving him the logic that those houses were gifted to them by William on their wedding, and if they had added that too in the will, it would create suspicions in everyone's mind. Even after claiming all of William's assets and businesses as his own, James was still unhappy. His intention was to tear the roof off his brother's head. He was such a pitiful dude. In addition, they made fun of me and suggested that I was a fool for falling for their ruse. While leaving the house, they were celebrating their win that James was able to get a house at 28 by using me when the other 2 brothers had to wait until they actually got settled. They were also happy to get all of William's wealth. Conversation between them boiled every drop of my blood. I was raging with anger, but William was surprisingly calm after listening to the entire conversation. He asked me to email him the recordings. I was more surprised at how Susan could let her two other sons suffer because of James's childishness and greed. William informed me that his other two sons, Michael and David, were from his first wife, who died when the boys were 2 and 1. William married Susan after 5 years of his first wife's death. I was shocked to know this because no one ever mentioned that Susan was not their actual mother. William was also shocked because he had never seen Susan differentiating between his 3 sons, and even his sons had never complained about Susan. I guess she was just a good actor, masking her true self all these years. We silently sat there for some time to let the information sink in. William then made a few calls, which I assumed to be his lawyer. He assured me that he won't let James or Susan cause any harm to me. He also urged me to return to my parents so I could be safer. I traveled back to my house yesterday. I told my parents about everything. As expected, my mother screamed at me for risking my life to sneak into that house, plant those mics, and gather the information. But I was proud of myself. I felt satisfied that I was able to dig out the information just at the right time. William called my father yesterday and assured me that he would deal with his wife and son and that I won't be harmed in any way. He also lauded me for my courageous move. As my father-in-law suggested, I blocked James and Susan and didn't sign the divorce papers yet. He had also asked me not to take any calls from an unknown number. James or Susan could call for an unknown number to harass me. I don't know how he is going to deal with the situation, but I just wish that he stays safe. I'll update you as soon as something happens. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Susan killed the first wife to get what she wanted from William. Hi all. Thanks for all the applause. A lot has happened in the last month since I last updated. I was in regular touch with my father-in-law because I was worried about his safety. He kept me updated about his move. After I met with him, he went to his lawyer and made a new will. He disowned James and Susan and divided all his properties between Michael and David. He had also frozen his will and added a clause: there would be no other changes in the future. In case someone presented a different version than this one, it should be discarded. William had lodged a police complaint against the mother-son duo with the help of the evidence I provided. They were booked with a criminal offense. Apparently, William called his army of attorneys at home and summoned his family, including Susan and his 3 sons. He did it so suddenly that James and Susan didn't get a chance to think. The lawyer read out the will in detail, followed by William's confrontation. The recordings I provided to William, where James and Susan discussed their evil plans, were played in front of everyone. While they both cried foul play, James and Susan tried to defend themselves, saying that the recording was fake and I was manipulating William for my own gains. They both swore to ruin my life, and when William's lawyer told them that they were booked with a criminal offense, they tried to run away, cursing William. They hid in a hotel, from where they were arrested the next morning. That very night, James and Susan blew my phone with their calls and voicemails. Although I had blocked their number, I could see a notification of the incoming calls coming from blocked numbers. They also sent voicemails to my parents' landline, but we decided to use them against them in court. I have also filed a harassment case against them along with the divorce and mental torture. My phone breathed relief only when they got arrested. Michael and David were also present, and they both were shocked that Susan had been masking her true self for all these years and James was such a crook. They both visited me with their wives and thanked me for exposing James and Susan, who were planning to bring them on the streets. Yesterday, my father-in-law visited my house with gifts and flowers. He apologized and thanked me for everything. In addition to all this, he gave me something very unexpected. He transferred James's house in my name. I was shocked at this generosity. I thanked him for his kindness but refused to take the house. I told him that Susan and James had already named me as a gold digger, and I didn't want to prove them right by taking the house. He said it was the least he could do to pay me back, and I should consider it an award for my honesty and courage. I kept refusing it until he got emotional, saying that he saw me as his daughter he never had. He also assured me that he had taken good care of James and Susan, and it will be years before they can both walk out of that prison. William sounds like an absolute angel. You're lucky to have a man like him in your life. Unfortunately, it took marrying your scummy ex to meet such a wonderful man. I'm so glad he's taking care of you and looking out for you, and he's right about the courage. Takes guts to be able to do what you did. You've saved him a whole lot of trouble down the road. What if James and Susan had planned something more heinous, like potentially getting rid of William? This is going to be a shorter update and mostly the last one. A year has passed since my divorce, and I'm yet not able to wrap my head around the scam that happened to me. As I mentioned in my last update, after much contemplation, I agreed to take the house. However, when I entered the house, I felt haunted and brought back the memories of that harrowing evening when James and Susan scared me to death. So I decided to sell the property. I asked William before making the decision, and he agreed to it. So yesterday the deal got closed and I sold the house. I'm trying my best to move on in life. I'm even seeking therapy to get rid of the nightmare that evening. As for James and Susan, they're still in jail because no one helped them bail out. William has used his money and wit at the right place and threatened James's and Susan's friends with dire consequences if they dare to bail them out. The family and relatives are anyway so angry with them that no one even went to meet them. William and the two brothers, Michael and David, check on me regularly. I have particularly grown closer to William and see him as the fatherly figure. The last time I spoke to him, he told me he was planning to retire and move with his uncle to their ancestral house in the countryside. I encouraged him because he had worked really hard all his life and needed a peaceful retirement. I'm sorry it all ended up here, OP. I can't imagine how traumatizing that would have been to go through. I'm glad you had some cushion after selling the house, though, despite everything. With any luck, this will position you for a bright future with someone who will show you the respect and affection you are due. I hope the best for you, OP. Would you have approached your father-in-law directly, or would you have set cameras? How would you have handled the situation differently? Thank you for following along today, and please share your thoughts in the comments section below.
What would you do in this situation? Let us know in the comments. If this story had you on the edge of your seat, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping family drama, shocking betrayals, and the revenge stories you won't believe.